Canada looks at increasing GDP, and they say, well, if the GDP is growing, oh, look, we're being productive. So their way of doing that has just been to flood the Canadian population with immigration. Well, quantity is not the issue. Quality is the issue. We want a better quality of individual who comes to Canada, not just a numbers game. So if you look at GDP per capita, which is what people should be assessing, that assesses the standard of living of each and every person within Canada. And that is on a steep decline. Numbers don't matter. It really, truly is about GDP per capita and making sure that the lifestyle of the people that live within your country is going up. And unfortunately with Canada, that is on a very steep slide downward. So the Canadian government right now is really, truly, honestly, just managing decline.
While making it look like they're actually doing something to affect the economy. But those GDP numbers don't lie when we're compared to the other G7 countries, that's for sure.
The OECD on a productivity level has said that, everybody talks about the last 10 years, but on the OECD, they predict that Canada will be the worst performing country. And the OECD monitors 37 countries, not even just the G7, 37 countries around the world. And we are at the bottom.
Okay, well, thanks, Toronto, for sending us Mark Carney. Thank you so much for that. I want to ask you about your book. Tell us about your book, and then maybe we'll get into why you wrote it.
Yeah, sure. So the book is about Alberta Rising. So, you have a lot of people right now that have been proposing what a new Alberta could look like. And, what I'm hearing is a lot of the same. And people are just recycling the same old ideas. And I'm like, well, no, if we're going to leave Canada, we're going to actually truly achieve independence. As somebody who truly is a freedom advocate, I'm like, let's look at this with a fresh set of eyes, a fresh lens, and what can we do differently? And the beauty is we have hindsight, we have precedent, we have an entire world full of ideas and examples to draw from. And, the systems and the institutions that we have established currently, even inside of Alberta, in my opinion, have to change. Our healthcare is dismal. Our education is dismal. Our banking doesn't serve the people. We're overtaxed, overregulated. That's not just a Canada problem. In my opinion, that's an Alberta problem. And so when I wrote the book, I wrote it from a perspective of principles and asking Albertans to be courageous enough and bold enough to actually maybe put aside some of our old beliefs and take a look at what's possible. And so doing that, it's more of a provocation. And each chapter starts with a little quote that gets you kind of thinking. It's that question, hook the mind. Do I agree with this? Don't I agree with this? And then I give you a little bit of information. And then it's like, what do you think? So it really is about provoking thought and critical thinking about, why we do what we do and can we do it better? When I had started the 1905 committee, it really was about people say, how'd you come up with the name? And I said, well, if we could go back, would we do anything different?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's a question that Corey Morgan often asks, or at least a question adjacent to that is, if in 2025, knowing what you know, with the deal that we have right now in Confederation, and you weren't a part of Canada, would you vote to join? And when you frame it in that way, you'd be hard-pressed to find somebody who would opt to join Canada under the current terms and conditions, for any other reason other than nostalgia, I think.
And if we didn't have that nostalgia, if we were our own country and we were asked to join now, it would be a hard no for most people. And yet you have so many people that they are unhappy with the status quo, but yet there is this fear holding them back in being willing to say yes on a referendum. We have no political clout. Reform has been promised for 50 plus years, the West wants in. None of that has ever changed a single thing for Albertans. And things have only progressively gotten worse, not only for Alberta, but for all of Canadians. And so, as Bruce Party points out, I think Alberta has the opportunity here, if Canada can be saved, which I don't think it can, But if it can be saved, it is going to take something like Alberta leaving, I think, to shake it up enough to look in the mirror, re-examine its own bad policies and its own bad governance to say things need to change.
Well, and I reject this idea that we should be governed by fear. I mean, we saw that during COVID, what governing from a place of fear was all about. Um, but it completely uh negates the sort of people that we are here in Alberta. Some people are new, all things considered, like you are. Um, but then there are people like me and my family, and we all set aside our own fear to come here. I live on the land my family broke with their backs and their hands in 1903. They didn't know where they were going or what they were going to encounter. But this was a place where they could chart their own course forward, and they weren't scared of hard work. I don't think we are scared of hard work, and I don't think that people should be telling us that we can't do this. Look what we were able to build in 120 years. They said the oil sands would never be profitable. They said that we would never have a prime minister from here. We were able to do all these incredible things and build an economy. And so for the people who are, largely it's urban people, but for those people saying like, it's just too complicated. I don't know. Have you met an Albertan? Because that's just not who we are, to be scared to do something because it's difficult.
Well, people have gotten too attached to their comforts. I grew up in Labrador, Sheila. Okay, 30,000 people. I grew up hunting and fishing with my dad. And when someone tells me they're going to take away my guns, I'm like a hard no.
Yeah.
And not because I use them much here in Alberta, but it's just because, it's a representation of our rights and our freedoms. And this is part of the problem with the Constitution, even in Canada. We, as Canadians, have no property rights. Like
Right.
no property rights. And this is your property and you have no right to it. And if anything, that is what COVID truly pointed out. And so, we really do have to re-examine what freedom actually is and what values do we actually put forward. So when people talk about, leaving Canada and they go, all the economic reasons, I look at it for the reasons you just said, the cultural reasons,
Mhm.
the moral reasons, the political reasons, not just economic reasons. And there are like, we again, for all of those reasons, we are not the same as the people in the East.
No.
And, you are more better aligned with our southern neighbors.
Yeah. I think that,
On
sorry to
Ontario.
interrupt, I think the cultural divide is east-west, not north-south, especially when you're in the West.
Absolutely. It is definitely east-west. And it's not even east-west because there are some people in Ontario and there are parts of Newfoundland that are claiming they want independence too now, because they have that sense of freedom, that entrepreneurial spirit. They don't want that dependency welfare state, right? They are willing to accept responsibility for their own actions and their own behaviors. And that's really where Albertans, I think, have always been. Like you talk to
Yeah.
a true blue Albertan and it's like, get the government out of my way and I'll show you how it's done.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's why they found it real difficult to control us during COVID, is because the people who come here know that they can rely on each other, on their friends and neighbors to get through life. We don't turn to the government for help. And so when the government was telling us, turn away from your friends and neighbors, we were absolutely having none of it.
Yeah. And you touched on the key word there, control. So the government in the East right now, especially the federal government, everything it does, every policy, it's about control. It's about you should comply and be an obedient servant to the government. And that is not the role of government. That has never been the intention. Now, that is the way it is, but that has reversed over decades. The role of the government is to protect your God-given rights. And that, to me, is number one. The government should never be allowed to use force on its own people, with the exception of enforcing the laws. And the laws need to be just, right? And they shouldn't be interfering in the daily lives